WestCoast Podcast. I am Shane, and with me, as always, is Trey.
Yes, sir. We are in the building, and I'm holding my phone. My phone is on. It's on standby right now, waiting for that notification to come through, and it did come through. I'm going to the video right now to make sure that it's all running smooth. And XFan is already XFan has been waiting for this podcast. He sits on standby waiting for this. I appreciate you, XFan, for being in here. Literally the second that it opens. But now we are back again with another episode. This is the 4th of July edition of the West Coast Podcast. We hope you guys out there have had a safe and fun 4th of July weekend. Unfortunately for Shane, he had some injuries, although not relating to 4th of July specifically. But since this is the 4th of July, we were talking before we started this podcast, and I said that I personally was not a fan of fireworks. So, which one of us is the least American? So, you have me that does not like fireworks, and you have Shane, who, and I still can't get over this, does not like cheesecake. So, which, in your opinion, is the least American out of not liking fireworks or not liking cheesecake? I think both of those are definitely hinders you if you are an American, but it is what it is. So with that being said, Shane, I know you've been kind of MIA this last week, and why don't you fill the people in on what's been going on so far? What?
Bet. Okay, so Trey, first off, cheesecake is freaking nasty, bro. Like, it just really is really nasty. So basically, what's been going on is I had Hoop Fest. It's the biggest 3-on-3 basketball tournament on outdoor in America. You can look it up. It is a 3-on-3 tournament, the biggest one outdoor, like I said. Basically, I was playing. We won. We got to Sunday. I was playing a guy, and he basically wasn't playing basketball because I was scoring down low on his teammates. So he guarded me, and basically it turned into like rugby, where he was just like slamming into me, and he tried to steal the ball from me, and he punched down at me, and basically punched my thumb so hard that I think it was just got like jammed in, and for like basically since Hoop Fest, it was last weekend, I couldn't bend it. It started turning black and blue. Like, I've never seen my thumb turn like that in all the years playing sports. And I couldn't bend it, and it looked fat like a hot dog. And I'm just starting to be able to move it all right, but it's still pretty sore, and moving it left to right to try to play video games is not really. It would be possible, I guess, if I forced myself through a good amount of pain, but obviously during the off season, I don't want to force it, especially when we got about, what is it, July 5th. We got 5 weeks until Madden 25 heats up. So it happened at the right time. I got another basketball tournament in about 3 weeks. It's in the mountains. We'll see how that goes. And then I got a tournament in a different state at the end of August. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see, the fun in it. Um, but yeah, actually, Trey, I remember you telling you that I was trying to work out and get in pretty good shape, especially since the last couple of years of having that back surgery and all that. And I actually played pretty well, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I probably should have called way more fouls because even people on the sideline that were in our bracket were telling me like they can't really guard you down low like straight up like real basketball. They turned it into like rugby, like, and all that stuff. Like, if you looked on the inside of my arm, Trey, and everybody listening right now, the inside of my arm is black and blue. Like, it looks honestly like I got like beat up. I mean, and I kind of did, to be to be honest, like I did kind of get feeling I did kind of get beat up, Trey. XN, I'm gonna be playing strictly Madden 25. Like I'm gonna spend my money on the game and trying to make my team as good as possible. So that's basically what I've been up to, you guys. I hope everybody had a good Fourth of July, like Trey said.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, and yeah, we talk about Hoop Fest, and something that obviously you've been invested in for a long time. And do you think now that you're a little bit older, and not saying that when you were younger you were like on the court just looking for trouble kind of thing, but when you're younger you got more testosterone going through your system and all that. Do you think as you get older you're not that like heated when someone tries you like with fouls and stuff, or do you think it's the opposite? Do you find yourself getting a little bit more infuriated quicker than you did when you were younger? And
I mean that's a wonderful question, Trey, and I'm being dead honest when I say that. So the main difference between me and now and me and my I would say prime in my 20s and stuff like that. I would have called fouls, man. When they were grabbing me and yanking me, I'd just call foul and they would cry about it and get mad. And I'd go to the free throw line and I'd make it because honestly, during my 20s, all I did was practice free throws and shooting and all that. And I was literally like, I think like 88%. Like we kept track during a couple basketball seasons. And I was like 88% from the free throw line. And then at Hoop Fest, even though it was outdoor, it was just, automatic. And it felt kosher shooting. I'm not as good now. Obviously, life goes on and life moves on. Um, but no, man, like I do think that I'm a little bit more reserved now than I used to be. Definitely, like I mean, I would be fired up like 24/7 in my 20s and like, but I know I got family around. My parents are there. They're older, got kids. Like so I try not to, but I like at the same time, like we had a game where the dude was guarding me and he shoved me really hard, so I just slammed back into him, backing him down low like in the post, like Shaq baby. And I went up to shoot and he shoved me and I called a foul. And I was going to the free throw line and he started walking up towards me like with his fist clenched at me. And he was probably like, I don't know, 6'1", because now there's no 6 foot and over or 6 foot and under, and he was about 6'1", probably like 230. And he walked up real fast to me like he was going to do something. So I walked at him and he got in my face and then quickly walked off. And I told him and his crowd and his friends and his teammates that they're not going to intimidate SHIT. And I repeated it a few times just to let them know, like, you know. Definitely, I don't try to fight as much, Trey. That like I don't want to do that. I don't even really want to call fouls like I used to in my 20s and maybe early 30s because I know that it's going to turn into fighting and I don't really want to fight anymore. The only reason I want to fight is if I have to protect my family. But like, yeah, game one, I wasn't going to let him walk up on me and act like, he's going to scare me or intimidate me. What's up, Rose? Long time no talk. I'm sorry about being MIA this week, but yeah, I had that nasty thumb injury. Um, but yeah, Trey, I mean that's a really good question. Like, yeah, in my 20s, I'd be like foul, 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 and I'd go to the line and shoot because they're not playing real basketball. And what I'm talking about, they're not playing real basketball. And yes, it is street basketball. I grew up playing physical hoops, not like AAU outside where you barely get touched, call a foul because the wind blew a little too hard on these teenagers and stuff like that. I mean, I played physical ball, like, but it was literally like rugby or football out there guarded me. Like I was getting grabbed, my arms were getting yanked. Like I had literally, if I flexed at you with my bicep, my left arm was like inside of my arm was black and blue and it was probably like the size of like a small basketball. No lie, no exaggeration either. Then on my other side, it was smaller, but you could see the fingerprints from where they grabbed me. And like when you know it's bad though is when they tell you, like people watch and say, "Hey, you need to start calling fouls on all these guys. And I'm like, yeah, but I hate calling fouls. And they tell you, yeah, but they're not playing basketball on you. You need to protect your body because they're not playing basketball. They're not stopping you playing basketball. They're stopping you by trying to commit felony basically on you. And it is what it is. Like, I'm a physical dude. By the last game when we got eliminated by the team who got second place, the guy was, we know him, we're cool with him, but he was like basically tackling me. Like, if this was real hoops, like with refs, the guys guarded me, they would have fouled out. They wouldn't have been able to guard me. And it's nothing like I'm saying I'm amazing or like, it's just I know what I'm doing when I'm playing hoops. And I never relied on athleticism or speed, so that was a positive. What's up, Rose? Yeah, no. I know it's the holiday week in July, but for sure, for sure. Okay, Trey, I'm sorry. I heard you click on.
Yeah, no, you're good. Also, shout out to Rose for coming in. She's always been loyal from day one, pretty much, and we appreciate your having in here, and also to Shane Streams. So, Shane, do you think that when you were a young buck back in the day and you were playing, hoops and all that, when you looked at people that were your age back then, do you think that you kind of, I don't want to say took it easy on them, but you weren't as aggressive as you see people being aggressive to you now that you're that old age, or do you think that aspect of it has been the same for the most part?
Trey, it depends. Like, if I was playing somebody and he was like 40 or 50 and I could tell he doesn't really play and he doesn't really play and he's just out there for fun, I'm not going to go 100% and try to knock his block off. Hell no, that's not what I'm going to do. But nah, man, I played, dude. I played when in Kellogg. Well, I think you know where Kellogg is. The rest of the people don't. But it was one of the toughest tournaments to win, and we ended up winning it all. We played these two dudes that were like 50 when I was in my 20s, and one dude played for the Minnesota Vikings way back in the day. I don't remember what his name was, but like he was steroided to the max, and he was just physical as hell. So I played physical as hell. Like, just like if you're 14, 15, 16, I'll be nice to you. Like, I'll be nicer for sure, but if you're like slamming into me and being a DICK, I'm gonna play physical back. I want to win. Like, more than anything, I want to win. Unless I know like we're just having fun, it doesn't matter. Nobody's gonna talk crap. Then I won't go, as physical. And like, I punched a 50-year-old when I was 22, 23. I mean, this guy was a former Golden Gloves boxer. I think I've told this story before. He was a bully. He bullied people in rec leagues. He was like 6'3", 265, 270, I think. My memory is not as sharp about his weight, but I mean, he was a big dude. And he kept throwing his elbows all the time, and he would be catching people. And I told him the one time when he almost connected when he threw an elbow, like a cross from Mike Tyson. I said, "Yo, you do that again, I'll punch you in your face." I told him that, and he threw an elbow to my forehead, caught me in the forehead. I fell down. He smirked at me. I got up and I punched him in his face. I mean, would I do it just out of? I would never just bully somebody. That's not my forte. X fan, I don't know who the best quarterback in the draft is. I'm not sold on, like, if you're talking about real NFL draft, I'm not sold on Caleb Williams. But in a way, I want Caleb Williams to do good because everybody turned on him now, and I always go for like the underdog at the same time. But yeah, Trey, that's where I'm at basically. Like, I would like if I know the older person or the super young kid doesn't play the sport and they're just out there to have fun and they're trying to guard me, I'm not going to be overly physical. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. I get what you mean. And since X-Fan answered that question, I am a Patriots fan, so obviously I'm hoping that Drake May pans out to be good. And it seems like Drake May himself has gotten a lot of mixed reviews. It's like people either hate him or they love him, and it's in between. Jaden Daniels, I think, could be good in Washington as well. But I think the one dark horse that I'm expecting to do pretty good, I know that he didn't. Apparently, I don't think he won the starting job over Sam Darnold, but J.J. McCarthy from Michigan, I think if he gets a chance to step in with that loaded Minnesota Vikings offense, I think he could pan out to be good as well. So we will have to wait and see. But so Shane, awesome stories that you've been going into, and I guess to expand on that, the thing that I'm curious about is like, do you think that from your generation and the generation now that the younger people were more respectful generally towards the older guys than they are nowadays? Do you?
You know, great question, Trey. I'm going to go a step back um, on a story. The problem is with outdoor basketball without referees is the teams that usually win the tournament are the people who call fouls all the time and play over physical and then complain if you call fouls, so they make it dirty and like, I don't want to say not fun, but it's not really like a game of basketball, but yes, that's what they're trying to do. I don't know. I don't know if the kids nowadays are more disrespectful. I know every generation, right, says the kids are worse and worse every generation. They're lazier, um, this and that. My generation was tougher than yours. I think what I think the main difference is words had consequences. I think that's the biggest difference. And you could be like, oh, well, that's an abuse, or like, yeah, because people abused back in the day. Like, if I disrespected my parents or somebody disrespected their parents, they're going to get a spanking, right? And nowadays they say it's abuse. It's, you know, abuse by the parents, and some people report it and some people post it online. I'm not talking about punching you in the face. I'm talking about the parent, spanks your butt when you're 7, 8, 9. Now it's abuse. So the same thing for this generation. Like, there's kids that, for example, I'll go back about, I don't know, about 8, 9 years. So when was that? 2016, roughly, I would say. Playing basketball, these kids were running their mouth, being I mean, about as disrespectful as you can say, Trey. They were probably between the ages of 15 and 17. Their mom pulled up in a brand new BMW. She marched herself up the grass, and my brother and I were like, oh, well, my brother was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, she's going to get, like, yell at them for being disrespectful to adults. And she turned to my brother and told my brother he needs to be quiet, basically, because they're children, and show respect to them. And that's when I realized, like, damn. Because, like, I was told by my mom flat out, Trey, like, hey, if an adult beats you up or picks on you for no reason, yeah, we're going to come after them. That's my mom saying. But if you're running your lips at an adult and they smack you in the face, don't come crying home. Don't come crying to me. Don't come crying when you're disrespectful. Now, my dad was on the other hand. He'd tell us not to be disrespectful, but if we were disrespectful to an adult and we got hit, slapped, punched by an adult, my dad would, handle business. But I mean, that's because he grew up tough. So, no, I think that's the biggest difference, though, Trey, is nowadays kids believe and think, and for the most part don't have any consequences for their verbal onslaught to adults. I like all these kids fighting teachers in school. Honestly, I had a bunch of people in the school I went to where they were troubled kids, like in and out of boys and girls group homes, bad tempers, and the worst they would do is to be verbal and disrespectful that way, and they'd get kicked out of class and suspended. I never saw like a kid punch a teacher, and I think that's what the difference is nowadays, because back when I was growing up, like, if an adult told you to do something, most of the time you should listen. And if you're disrespectful to an adult, Trey, and we're crossing the line, you might get punched in the face. Where now the kids nowadays think that they're in the clear and they can say whatever they want. and like certain people that I've dealt with online and all this stuff, what do they say once they feel like it might cross the line? I'm only 16, you're an adult. So they use that avenue, Trey.
Yeah, no question. They definitely use that avenue, and I think the universe has a way. I'm a big believer in karma, so I think that at the end of the day, if you are disrespectful, I think that definitely people should put their foot down more in that aspect. But if you do bad things, you reap what you sow, and if it doesn't happen when it should happen, then the universe will have a way to get to you one way or another with that. So, so how do you think that relates to the Madden community specifically? Because the guys, the young bucks that you interact with on the basketball court, I assume are way different than the people that you interact in Madden. And what do you think, like the biggest, like not even just like broadly, but specifically the people that you interact with, or I guess the young bucks that are popular in Madden these days, what do you think is their biggest problem in general? What do you?
You meant like how they talk and how they handle stuff, or like
Yeah,
how they
like
come across.
yeah, like how they handle stuff, how they interact with people. I guess like the are they good people, that type of thing, like personality wise and all of that.
You know, to be honest, I have met some young people that are really, really amazing people. So I don't want to act like the young generation is like, you know what I mean, like is horrible. But the ones who do like to cause trouble, because like I said, there is a lot of cool people that are younger. Okay, um, but my one thing I personally think is the difference nowadays and back in the day is, and it's probably because the internet's more prolific now, obviously, than back in the day. But I think the punk kids that get on the internet nowadays think they can get away with much more than I would have ever imagined. And they do cross the line, like you and I have talked about in the past, with certain people. And then they try to play the victim more. Where, like, I didn't really see that growing up. Like, if they were there bullies growing up when I was in school? Yeah, I do. I really do, but not like how it is, nowadays. Like I think how they hide behind a computer.
Yeah, no question. And like, do you think that there could be some benefits? Because like sometimes like, and this is just broader, like not even just Madden, but young people in general. Do you think, because obviously we know bullying is bad and it shouldn't be around and all that, but I heard Chris Rock say something that was interesting, and and he was like basically saying that you need bullies in a way. So do you think that like maybe if someone was bullied, they would like be more cognizant of certain things, and that they would behave differently, or am I way off on that?
About needing bullies? Is that what you're saying, Trey? Like you need bullies?
Yeah, like, well, not need, but like there could be some benefit to it in a way, and
I don't think that the world needs any bullies. So I disagree with Chris Rock on that. I think that people need to be punished for their actions and not excuse making. And I think that if people got punished for how they acted, they would they would act much different, Trey. Like if the first time, online I bullied somebody where I was calling them names, calling them slurs and all of that, I got outed. However, I got outed and people found out, like, like a couple people in the Madden community that got outed for slurs. It made them be smarter about not doing slurs, right, Trey? Even if they still believe in their slurs, they've kept it on the down low now. And I think that's what would change the most. I know it's probably impossible to do. So I just think that like you don't really need bullies. You just need people to be able to be accounted for talking crap. Like, and it's not. I mean, and maybe Chris Rock said it wrong, but I think there needs to be like a response, if that makes sense, Trey. Like, not necessarily bullying, but like, let's say that you know I'm writing you online, harassing you, and you report it online, and I get a warning from whatever the internet, whoever it is, the internet that says, "Hey Shane, last name at this address. If you keep harassing Trey, we are going to release this data on you. You need to stop with the harassment." Most people would stop, Trey. Most people would stop right there. Like, I'd stop because I don't want my information out there. And yes, it is probably not likely ever being able that way. Like, I know some people say, like, if you steal in different countries, you get your hand chopped off. I mean, that's a little extreme. You know what I mean? Like, the only way I'm going that route is if, like, they're a pedophile or, like, a rapist and they can get whatever gets to them that way. But, like, I'm not talking about that extreme, but, like, warnings, right? Warnings. Trey, X fan wants to know, who do we think is going to be the next five Super Bowl winners? I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. But that's a good question, Trey. So if you want to try to answer that for X fan.
Yeah, no doubt, and I feel you on all that. I think what Chris Rock was saying is because I don't know if you saw his show, everybody Chris Rock, but essentially it was depicting his childhood, growing up and being basically the only black kid at an all-white school, and that he got bullied. So maybe he was saying it in a way where it's like, if I didn't go through what I went through, then maybe that wouldn't have motivated me to get to a higher level. So, but then again, not everybody that it affects people differently. So for someone, it might motivate them, but for others, it might shut them down completely. So I understand what
No,
you're saying
yeah.
about that, but I mean, the Chiefs have to be on top of your list, right? You have a guy in Patrick Mahomes who is young. I would say he's still in his prime and he has a lot of years left to go. What I'm interested to see though is the Andy Reid effect, because I still think that Andy Reid is responsible for a lot of Patrick Mahomes' success. Now, Patrick Mahomes, don't get me wrong, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback already, excellent player, and really an excellent dude. I respect him so much for, having to deal with his weirdo brother and his dad, who always seems to be into something, and not to mention his girlfriend. And even with all that, I hate him because I'm a Patriot fan, but that Kermit the Frog sounding mother effort just goes out there and he just gets it done. So that's probably who I want to be, but honestly, like in the salary cap era, there's only been one dynasty. I don't think it's going to happen again simply for the salary cap reason. Back in the 70s and 80s when San Francisco was winning all those championships, there wasn't salary cap, so if you had the wallet for it, you could just pay the top players whatever. So what's your opinion on that, Shane?
I'm gonna go twofold. I'm gonna actually go back a little bit and then I'm gonna answer this. I think I understand what you mean, like what maybe Chris Rock was meaning. Like, yeah, some people, like you say, they're never gonna amount to something. Some people curl up and get really depressed because they can't handle it, and that's no right or wrong. Like, there's no judgment there. And then there's some people who will try to show like yeah, the next time you see me, I'm going to be on top and I'm going to remember this. And then there's some people who will be like, yeah, I'm going to be on top and then I'll forgive you. And then there's some people who try and fail and then they're bummed out about that. Like, the whole fight or flight response. Some people have flight, some people have fight. My issues for what I've noticed is mine's usually more fight, which is not always a good thing because it puts you in dumb situations. So like there's no right or wrong, like way about it. Like sure you need to stick up for yourself once in a while because if you don't stick up for yourself once in a while, I you'll get walked all over, but there's no need to always respond to people, I guess, because most of them aren't thinking about you when you go home. I remember like a quote from somebody. I don't remember who said it, but it was basically like you need to quit worrying about what people say because most of the time when they go home, they're not thinking about you. Most of the people, sure, some people are, but most are not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about what they can do. And most people judge you and put you down because they feel like you're in competition with them, or maybe you are a little better in the stuff they want to be at, or maybe they're just jerks. You know what I mean? And so that's one way to look at it. To move up to it, I do agree with you, Trey. I don't think that there will be that many dynasties with the salary cap unless like they do that one thing where they said that they're trying to get where quarterbacks are their own salary and then their salary cap for the rest of the team separated. I just like salary cap is a reason so people don't have dynasties. Like I'm gonna be honest with you, and like Trey, you won't like this because you're a Patriots fan. If there was no salary cap for 2014 when the Seahawks lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, the Seahawks would have beat the Patriots. And I think it would have been probably a two-touchdown game, and the reason why I say that is because Seahawks had backup cornerbacks that were starters elsewhere when they left. That would have filled the spot for Jeremy Lane when he broke his arm instead of Thorold Simon. They would just inserted another starting cornerback that was on the 2013 team. I believe it was Walter Thurman, actually, but I'm not entirely sure. And then I believe they had Tony McDonald that left somewhere because we couldn't pay it, and another defensive tackle. So we lost like two defensive tackles. But yes, it is for the better overall because like if you have a rich owner back in the day like Dallas Cowboys or the San Francisco 49ers, like it was pretty one-sided. You knew like it was going to be this team and this team in the Super Bowl and this team's going to win most likely. So for me like I like the variety. I do, but at the same time like I wouldn't be upset if the salary cap left either for the simple fact is then you better hope that your owner spends money on your team, right? I mean, that's how you get it. Like you get money by spending money. Like, yep, if I could go back in time, Trey, and I had $30,000, I would have been a millionaire by now with the stock report, but I didn't. But if I did, right? So that's where I'm going with like the owners. Like the owners do have money, unlike me. So they are rich. Some are richer than the other, but they definitely have a lot of money to spend. So I'm not upset if they took the salary cap off. I'm cool with the salary cap on. But yes, if the salary cap stays on, I don't think there's going to be tons of dynasties left out.
Yeah, no question. And the funny thing is that even with those quarterbacks that you said that you weren't able to pay or whatever, you still could have beat us if you would have handed the ball off to Marshawn, and then honestly, you probably win another one too. You probably win another one with the Legion of Boom, barring any injuries or whatever, and the Seahawks could have been the second dynasty in the Seattle era. But what can you do? And that's honestly like the reason why I like football and I don't really care for like other sports is because of the playoff structure. Because it's like in basketball and in baseball how they do the best four, out of 7, people can say, "Oh, well, the better team always wins," but that just defeats the purpose. Like when the Giants beat the Patriots twice, they were a fringe wild card team that basically got hot at the end of the season and was able to ride the wave all the way up to a Super Bowl. And you have Eli Manning out there just throwing balls to defensive team meetings, trying to do everything possible to lose the game, but he ends up winning. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't ever think it's just that one thing. That's kind of where I disagree with you. You know, people can get in the moment and say, "Oh man, if it wasn't for that blown call the referee had, or if it wasn't for, this person being injured, then we would." I mean, momentum is a real thing it could carry, but when you look at it in its totality, it's never just that one thing that happens that results in a win or a loss, in my opinion. But I do like your commentary on that one. So where are you at with Mahomes' legacy right now? Do you think that there's anything he can do at this point in his career to dethrone Brady, or do you think because he's 0-2 against Brady that he's always going to be inferior to Tom Brady? And
Good question. Going back on that question, yeah, it is never like one thing like you said, but the thing is if I don't know if you looked at the stats or anything, Trey, at that Super Bowl, the biggest thing was when Cliff Averill got hurt with the concussion. That's when Brady was able to step up in the pocket, and like that's when he diced up the Seahawks. So yes, there's a plethora of stuff. Like if Jermaine Kearse catches the ball on that third down, Seahawks will at least kick a field goal, and then the Patriots are screwed. But in the end, it was a great Super Bowl. It was one of the best Super Bowls of all time. It's unfortunate for me uh, as a Seahawks fan because I knew when that interception happened, it was the end of the dynasty. I actually feel like the LOB is thin skinned. Like Russ can be thin skinned too in an ego, but like this is what I think about because like they were talking about it, like Seahawk players from that era are still talking about it from the defensive side, talking about how like yeah, I'm still mad about that Super Bowl. Like we should have handed it off to Marshawn Lynch. But at the same time, can you imagine if Russell Wilson or Marshawn Lynch kept being like, "Yeah, we had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. We had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and the team who the defense who has most money spent compared to our offensive side, they couldn't hold a 10-point lead, and they couldn't stop anything, and they're the reason why we lost it. You don't hear that. You just hear about the interception, Pete Carroll not handing the ball off to Marshawn, but like it's because the defense was thin skinned and was like is more thin skinned than I thought. Cam Chancellor, you never hear complaining about it. It's just certain people like Richard Sherman or even like Bobby Wagner. I've heard about it a couple of times. And yeah, like they were one of the best defenses of all time. Like of all time. Like just matter of factly. And yes, would I be a little pissed we lost? Hell yeah, I'd be pissed. Would I be pissed that we didn't hand the ball off to Marshawn? Probably. But I feel like you win as a team and lose as a team, and you have to have the mindset of okay, we're on a new season, let's go. But what happened was the defense hated the offense after that, so it was ruined. It was already ruined. To go to Mahomes and Brady, I mean, Mahomes' numbers aren't that good in the Super Bowl. They're very pedestrian. Like I'm just gonna be honest. Like they're very pedestrian. Like if it was other QBs, they would say that the defense carried them or whatnot. Like I'm not that. I'm not like actually. I'm gonna go check just to make sure. I'm gonna sound super dumb, but I don't believe his numbers are that amazing in the Super Bowl. Do I believe they go to the Super Bowl because of him? Yes, I do. I do. So I'm not taking anything away from the dude in the standpoint of like is he a great QB? That's silly, but we're comparing him to other greats. So that's where I base it off of. Like I base it off of that. Yeah, I'm not really that impressed. Like honestly, how many cube? So he is. What is he in the Super Bowl? 3-1. 3-1 in the Super Bowl, right? And he has 5 touchdowns to 4 picks with an 85 overall rating. Like that's not impressive to me. Like his obviously he had one amazing game against Philadelphia. That was an amazing game by him. It was more like some people would use for certain QBs. He was a game manager, 21 for 27, 182 yards. That's nothing impressive right there. That's game managing. And then he had 3 touchdowns to 0, which is amazing. And then his Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. His win against San Fran, excuse me, yeah, his game against San Fran, where they won the Super Bowl, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. So I'm not really impressed, but now overall, I'm not impressed. But the last 2 years have been better. 5 touchdowns and 1 pick. I'll definitely take that. Obviously, you know what I mean. But at the same time, that game versus San Fran, it was a low scoring game for the longest time, and then he got the touchdown. For the longest time, it was just whatever, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I think he has to do way more if you want to know the truth. Like, I think he has to do, like, way, way more. Like, if you go through, like, if you go look at the Super Bowl last year, Trey, he had 1 touchdown and 1 pick into OT. That's pedestrian, really. Just to be fair, that's pedestrian. Like, if you're comparing other QBs and being like, gonna put him down, I just, I'm not really like, I don't think his QB stats in the Super Bowl is that great. So I think if to beat Brady, I think he'd have to win like 8 or 9 Super Bowls. I really do. If he was like 8-1, there would be talk that he was better than Brady. Just matter of factly, that would be the conversation for GOAT. Do I believe it'll happen? No, I don't. I really don't. X fan said I think if the Chiefs had Dak or another QB, they'd go 12-5. But Patrick's carrying a big percent of the team. I mean, he is, but at the same time, like if you go X to Andy Reid's numbers, he made Alex Smith way better. He made Donovan McNabb way better, and then he made Patrick Mahomes better. Now, Patrick Mahomes is probably the most talented out of those QBs, obviously, and he's really good on his own laurels. But Andy Reid definitely knows how to put, players in possession on the offensive side. But to sum it up, Trey, I think that Patrick would have to go like 8 Super Bowls with 1 loss or 9 Super Bowls and 2 losses. You won't see it, though. You won't see it. So as a Brady fan, I'd be chill.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I'm not worried at all. But you bring up the Super Bowl stats. Are those stats that you personally hold in high esteem? Because I know the whole thing with Montana that the few people that are still clinging to Montana as their guy, which is fair, to each his own. But that's one of the things you always hear him bring up is that Joe Montana never threw an interception in the Super Bowl. But to me, I always found it kind of an oxymoron because in one of the Super Bowls against the Bengals, both of those things could have happened when that dude from the Bengals dropped a pick that would have both ended his undefeated Super Bowl run and his perfect touchdown to interception ratio in the Super Bowl. So, do you hold that in high esteem?
I hold it more here, Trell. I hold it more because I'm more talking to the people. I do kind of. I do. Because the people I'm talking about will act like Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT, or even look, I'm gonna even be honest. Like, do I think Tom Brady is probably the best QB of all time? Yes, because he did it in a salary cap. Xan asked Joe Montana or Tom Brady. I put Joe Montana number 2 right now. Honestly, the only reason I don't have Joe Montana as number 1 is because Tom Brady did it in a salary cap era. Tom Brady still had fantastic teams around him. He did. He would have lost a few games if he didn't have a fantastic team. I personally think it's more about team play than just QB play, but everybody is calling like Patrick Mahomes the baby goat, right? The baby goat. He's the baby goat, and he's the reason they're winning all these Super Bowls. So here, I'll flip it to you, Trey. Do you think he's a baby goat because he has 3 Super Bowls out of 4, like people are saying? But he really is only averaging slightly over a touchdown a game in the Super Bowl and an interception a game in the Super Bowl. So he's going 1-to-1. Isn't that really pedestrian? And then if you think I more lean towards it's a team game, and you still need a very good QB, right? You do. But I think it's more team game. I don't think it's just Mahomes carrying them because if he was carrying them, they would have lost 3 of the. He would be 1-3 in the Super Bowl if you were talking about how he was just carrying the team by his stats. He only had one good Super Bowl stat wise.
Yeah, no, I think what it comes down to in that regard is just recency bias. I mean, you can look back. There's film on guys like Johnny Unitas, Joe Namath. I think is the most overrated quarterback of all time. But you can look at Johnny Unitas and those guys, and you could see if you could find film on them, and you can look at how they play, even though you weren't there personally to experience it, then I think you can garner a respect. But I just think that with the way that sports now and how they've always been is just what have you done for me lately? And I think that when it comes to looking at stats like that, I think the more casual fans just look at Patrick Mahomes, who's this flashy athletic guy that just goes out there and gets it done. I just think it's more of a product of recency bias in the sports. But I try to be fair on both sides because I also do realize that there's some old heads out there that they like their generation, but on the other side they don't give much respect to the newer players. They all say that they're soft and this and that. But me personally, I try to see the best in both sides without getting recency bias, but then also at the same time not being the old man on the porch yelling at the clouds, if you know what I mean. If
No, exactly. Can you hear me, Trey?
yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree, and it goes back to my generation was tougher than your generation. My generation had more respect. My generation had this and that, right? So I do agree on the recent biasy and all that stuff. The thing is like people will always do that. Like old man yells at cloud on the hill. Like when people get older and they become in their like 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on, they're gonna feel disrespected because the new generation acts like Michael Jordan played against a bunch of plumbers and janitors. I mean, he would still be able to play today and be awesome. Like, cause you're picking and choosing. Like, I mean, Jim Brown. I never saw Jim Brown play live. I wasn't alive when he was playing, but a dude who was like 6'3", 230, who ran a 4.3 and loves smash mouth football, I think he'd be just fine in today's era. Do I think every player back in the 80s, the 70s, and 60s and 90s could be now? Some I do. I really do. I think how you said I think Johnny Unitas is the most overrated QB of all time. Rules make it hard for me on that aspect because picture here I'll say this. Picture the LOB, right? The Seahawks defense for that 4 or 5 year period where they're number one defense by far in the NFL. Picture them playing in the 80s and 90s when they could clothesline receivers and snap QB's ankles and knees and launch themselves head on into a QB's head or a wide receiver. They might have been even better, but that messes up QB numbers because I think Joe Montana, I think Steve Young, I think Brett Favre, I think there'd be tons of QBs that played in the 80s and 90s would be putting up dots all over. Look at Dan Marino. Like Dan Marino had almost, I believe, 5,000 yards back in the day, and the rules were much, much, much tougher than the rules nowadays for an offensive team. And I think I was just a baby when he set all those records for that one season. So he would be able to play nowadays, Trey, and picture him behind like Andy Reid. Dude would make the game look silly. But do I think that like they're all better back in the day than now? No. LeBron could go play in the 80s and be just fine. Kobe Bryant could have went and played in the 80s and been just fine. And then you can go to football. Like Derrick Henry would have smashed in the 80s too. You know what I mean? That's just where I'm at. Like I think greats for the most part will be greats in a lot of decades.
Yeah, no question. And it's like, damn, what was I gonna say? Yeah, with like the whole recency bias is like someone like you, because I don't think that like the way defensive linemen and linemen are like big guys that can run 4, 5, 40-yard dashes. I don't think they made it. They didn't make those back then in like the 80s and the 90s. So yeah, like like you said, I try to be fair both ways. When because of recency bias and like what you just said. So I try to stay even keel with that. But yeah, the Legion of Boom I think is interesting. I know like we already talked about that, but I think that they are kind of were thin skinned because you had a situation where when Tom Brady was kneeling the game out, then you had that little scrap at the end of it, and also the one game against Jacksonville a few years ago when there was a fight and they one of the guys got kicked out, tried to fight into the crowd and stuff like that. So when you see that, and also Richard Sherman's antics, trash talking Tom Brady and all that, is that something that concerns you? Like, or do you kind of like the whole? Because me personally, I don't really mind trash talk that much if it's all, competitive and nothing personal and stuff like that. Stuff.
No, I'm cool with trash talk, but if you're able to if you're a trash talker, you better be able to handle it on the get back. You know what I mean? Like, and I just feel like I don't know. Like, obviously, the one thing that will always stick out to me from the Seahawks LOB defense, besides being amazing to watch and one of the funnest times to watch, for as a Seahawk fan, Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, Curse, Marshawn Lynch, and then on defense, Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Brandon Browner, Earl Thomas, and so on. Like, besides that being fun, the one thing that will always stick out to me is Cam Chancellor mic'd up when the Seahawks were playing the Atlanta Falcons a couple years after, the Super Bowl loss, and they were getting blown out by the Atlanta Falcons in the playoffs in the Atlanta Dome or whatever it's called. I can't remember right now, but and he said something along the lines of every time we start losing, we start fighting each other. We always turn on each other. That needs to stop. We're a brotherhood. So right there, I mean, that should stick out to a lot of like Seahawk fans and NFL fans. That's my point, I guess, about like maybe they're a little bit more thin-skinned than people thought. And yes, like if I'm doing all the work, and because people are like, well, they're doing all the work, and I mean, I've played sports where I was a better player on the team. I just try to uplift my team with me. And yeah, sometimes I'd be like, "Come on, man, we need to go. Let's go." You know what I mean? But I mean, I wouldn't have went all over TV and been like, "Yo, like my point guard sucks and he's soft," and I would have won a Super Bowl or I mean, I would have won the NBA title with it. I just wouldn't have done that. Now, if he's talking crap about me, yeah, I'll stick up for myself for sure. But like, I don't know, like that will always stick out to me, right, Trey? Like what Camp Chancellor said about how every time we start losing, we turn on each other and start fighting. We need to stick together as a brotherhood. That I don't even know how many Seahawk fans watched that and it stuck in their head. But when it stuck in my head, when I saw it, like that was big to me, like that. Or here, oh, hey, and going back, Trey, really quick. So like, yes, overall, the players nowadays are bigger, they're stronger, and they're faster as an overallness, right? Because they're bigger and faster. Usually, honestly, what they were saying, at least in science, is they get more food, they get proper nutrition, and all that stuff, and that's what's making most people bigger as they get older. But like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Jim Thorpe. I'd assume that you probably have. I'm not sure, but like,
Yeah, of course. They named the Division Two Heisman the Thorpe Award, I believe.
okay, perfect. So, but in 1915, bro, he was 6'1" and 215 pounds, and he had blazing speed. Like, so with nutrition nowadays, he'd probably be 6'2", 230. And so yes, there are certain people, but yes, overall, football players now would smoke 1920s and 30s and 40s players, and they'd probably smoke 1960s and 70 players. I'd say probably the 90s to the 1990s, and see, now people would be like, oh, you're being biased because that was time you watch it. I'd say probably in the 90s to now would be closer as an overall battle, Trey.
Yeah, no doubt. You know another running back, and I don't know if I should bring up his name, but was different is OJ. Like, just talking strictly football. I mean, that dude could. I think he would. I think if he were to play now, he'd be even better than he was back then. Like, there's just like so much untapped potential with that dude, in my opinion. But yeah, like you were talking about, the Cam Chancellor mic'd up about how we lose, we start turning on each other. And I just think that that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to sports, that, people let their emotions, and, granted, football and any sports is an emotional thing. But it just never comes down to, turning on each other and fighting. That doesn't help. Like, the tuck roll, and again, I'm biased because I'm a Patriots fan, but I remember watching a documentary about that, and Charles Woodson said, oh man, when they overturned the call, I knew it was over. And to me, I'm like, dude, put the helmet back on and go out there and stop them from getting into field goal range. Like, for real. Like, if you're gonna let a call, no matter how BS it was, prevent you from playing, then you don't deserve to be in the Super Bowl, in my opinion. And it's like the same thing with like Steve Bartman. Like, when Steve Bartman, when it initially happened, people were always quick to blame him and all that and what he went through. But if you ask people that are aware of the situation now, they'll all tell you that it's BS that he got treated the way he got treated. And, he actually, when the Cubs won a World Series finally, they gave Steve Bartman the award. But it's like, refs and all that, get criticism when really it's just not about that one play, is what I'm saying. But Shane, we've been talking, and honestly, we haven't even talked about Madden this whole podcast, which is kind of insane. So I know you've been kind of out of commission due to your thumb injury and stuff like that. But from what you have seen from other people in the Twitter sphere and people you interact with, how are they liking, because the beta was reopened for a period of time? Or did you hear anything at all here?
So, honestly, I'm going to go back again. Like, I know, like, we do have the Madden, we do talk about Madden, but what we have done, what I really like, Trey, is that it's just the West Coast podcast, so we go with what's going on. We do it fluidly. I got a couple things to go back on, and then I'll go to Madden if that's okay. Um, so it kind of reminds me of like how you were talking about Steve Bartman. So I don't know if you know who Bill Buckner is for the. He played baseball for.
Yep, that had
And
that crucial error.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it went through his legs, right? I believe he was on Boston, right? I believe he was on Boston Red Sox then.
Yeah, and then later they all welcomed him back. Like, they did a whole ceremony for him. Yeah.
Yes, but for like when I was grown up, pre-internet, basically, right? I always thought that it went through his legs, they lost, and that was the World Series, right? I didn't know that there was a whole Game 7 the day after. So they're blaming him. Yep, he booted a routine ground ball. Okay, and it gets through the legs of Buckner. Blah blah blah. I remember the announcer call and everything. But there was a whole nother game. Buck up. You know what I mean? Buck up. Like honestly, you need to like. I for growing up, Trey, I always thought that that was the last game of the series. I didn't know there was a whole nother game to be played still. And then here I found something really really interesting, Trey. You know how we were talking about the average size of like players? I found this old database. So here's something pretty interesting. So the average weight of NFL linemen over the decades, right? 1920s, 6 foot, 210 pounds. You get smoked, right? They'd get smoked out by offense linemen now. 1970s, 6'3", 255 pounds. They would get bullied by the nowadays, right? But see, that's what made me feel like I might be on the right path because I said I feel like the 1990s and so on, it's not that different than what people think it is. Like the young kids nowadays thinking that, they'd smash the 1990s and the 1980s and maybe even the early 2000s for some of the kids nowadays. Because I mean, I forget how like it's 2024, but here's something, Trey. So in 1980s, it was 6'4", 275 pounds was the average size. I mean, that's not much difference than what it is nowadays. So in the 1990s, it was 6'4" and 300 pounds on average. The average size now for an NFL lineman is 6'5" and 315 pounds. So in the 1990s, it was only an inch and like 15 pounds different. And in the early 2000s, excuse me, in the early 2000s, it was just an inch different. So I really believe the 1990s and up. And then some 1980s players, like probably the Fridge and stuff like that, and Walter Payton, they could play nowadays. But the 1970s and earlier, nah, I don't think they would. The only guy that I think would was Jim Brown, and Jim Brown was like 6'3", 230. So he was as big as an NFL lineman, defensive lineman, but he was super fast and super strong. So like he was like a unicorn. Um, and then so that's just what I had to say about that. So going about the beta, I mean, it is weird. A lot of them are basically saying what I said. I know that we talked about it, but a lot of the people that I've talked to feel like it's very similar to Madden 24. Some people think the passing's easier. Some people think the passing's more crisp. Um, some people say the kicking meter's faster, which I do believe it is. And the people that I are going to try to do the new kicking meter. But other than that, they said it's all over the board, Trade. The only difference, like what I've got, is that it's close to Madden 24. Because, like I said, some people think the game's a little quicker than Madden 24, and then some people think it's slower. But what I basically got from it is the game feels similar to Madden 24, but the kick meter, the new kick meter probably is going to be the new thing to do. And also, one thing that I will say is that they have cool hot routes now. Confusing as hell, so it'll take time for me to learn it. But yeah, that's basically what I've been hearing from people, Trey.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be a bad thing. I mean, overall, I didn't really mind Madden 24's gameplay too much. I think the only thing that I really have a problem with is zone coverage not playing well. Like for me, I don't care if I shouldn't have to put an ability on a guy in order for him to play a hard flat. Like if you throw a hard flat, then that guy should be able to play it no matter the situation. I also think, the whole abilities that we talk about, I do like them in the sense that it makes superstar players feel like superstar players, but I just think it's just gotten to the point now where it's just been too fake, and I think that they need to work on a new system because I'm just over abilities at this point. So that would be the one thing, and the other thing that I'd want to change is the overall fakeness of the game. And it's not something that will be noticeable because when Madden 25 comes out, we won't have, these unbelievable pre-lit, coming at you 100 miles an hour, jumping every pass. You can't throw over the middle because they can just stand there and jump up and intercept the ball. But I would like to see, as we proceed further down into the year, that they kind of tone it down with that kind of stuff. Stop making these being a superstar is one thing, but the stuff they do in MUT is just straight up ridiculous. It's like a comic book movie with some of the stuff that the defenders are able to do, and vice versa. So I want to ask your opinion, Shane, on that, and then also, you said that you're playing MUT obviously because it's competitive and it's kind of a necessity at this point, unfortunately. But my question to you is do you think over the course of years that you've been playing MUT that the mode itself has kind of grown on you, like on a level to where you kind of like it, or not really? You still kind of have a disdain for it?
So I agree with you. Like the abilities, like for me, the abilities have always been too much for me, Trey. It's been it's been a little too much. Like I feel like in Madden 16 when I was playing regs, the superstars felt like superstars to me compared to the lesser players, but maybe not. Maybe my memory's clouded on that. And to answer you about the whole like, has MUT grown on me? It has. It really has. It's grown on me, and sometimes I'm like, damn, Reg sucks compared to MUT on certain aspects. But I think it's just what you play. You know what I mean? I think it's what you play and what game you play. Because like people who strictly play regs and then try to play MUT still think MUT sucks compared to regs, and then strictly MUT players thinks regs are awful. You know what I mean? For me, like my main thing is like MUT has grown on me, but I know I have to play it if I want to be in the competitive scene. And yes, I can do money games on regs. Like I probably will this year because I'm gonna do money games. You know, I don't know. It's just too much. Like the abilities are too much, Trey. I kind of wish it went back to like Madden 16, I believe it was, or maybe it was Madden 13. I don't remember. Madden 13 or Madden 16, I apologize on my memory, but like where they had 3 stars on offense, 3 stars on defense, zone coverages would play to their rating, right? To their rating. Because I'm tired of man coverage being OP every year to start the year and man coverage being, OP until the abilities get like Mario'd up. For me, it's like I just kind of wish it went back to where it was like your ratings matter, 3 stars here, 3 stars here, and just play. Like I don't really want to have like 4,200 abilities, and then that I don't know, man. Like so, has it grown on me overall, Trey? The answer is yes, but it's because it's a competitive part. Like I'm not sure what I'll feel like when next year if I'm doing money games on regs because MUT people don't have money games on the gaming sites as much as regs, so I might be flipping back and forth. But it's like I know that there's certain plays that like what I run, I actually look better offensively on regs doing it with certain teams than my MUT and vice versa. But for me overall, Trey, like I'm tired of the abilities, bro. That's just being honest.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you on that. And like you said, because that was going to be my next question, going back to Madden 16, is that you felt like, back then, they made superstars feel like superstars. So, 2 questions is, do you think that it is important to have some sort of, you know, something, maybe not abilities, but just something similar to it to make, the superstars stand out on their own? Do you think that that's an important thing Not trying to sound condescending or nothing. I hope you know that, like, because I agree with you on the whole abilities things overall. And then also my second question is like, what do you think about, maybe having like I don't know how they do it, but having like a CFM style tournament, but it's competitive, because I know you also have spent some time with CFM. Is that something that you could see yourself being invested in, or not really? No.
Trey, I didn't take it like that at all, bro. You're good. No, I think that like let's just say you get 3 stars, right? 3 superstars on each side, like then it is what it is. Like, I mean, you're still gonna have like Kansas City be having the better players overall. You know what I mean? Like you're still gonna have the better players overall. It's just you have the 3 stars being way better. And like if you want to have abilities on that, like Patrick Mahomes is hot route master, right? And that's a superstar thing. Or like Lamar Jackson has Truz, or however you say it. I'm okay with those kind of abilities. I'm talking about like where like there's ability on every player. There's 42 abilities, and you need it so zone coverage works. Like when I was playing from like Madden 13 to Madden 16 or 17, the ratings mattered more, bro. Like your zone coverage would play to its rating. You didn't need 42 abilities to make it work. And yes, was the game perfect? No. Madden 13, there was if you got inside the 5 yard line, it was basically a glitch where you put 2 of your running backs on wheel routes and highball it, and nobody would be able to stop it because your team dumbed out, and you had nano blitzes. And so if you learn how to block nano blitzes, which I did, then you'd win way more money, and that's how it is. So it wasn't perfect, but like the game's never perfect, right? The game's never perfect. There will always be exploits. The main difference is ratings mattered more. Ratings played to a T, and there was less abilities on the field. Now, about CFM, yeah, bro, I would do. Look, I'm gonna be honest. If they said, "Hey, Superstar KO is a tournament, and it's gonna be 3-on-3 or 2-on-2," I would do it. So yes, I would definitely do CFM if there was the competitive tournaments in MCS.
Right, but I'm saying like, are you a fan of CFM? Like, do you think it would be better than MUT in your opinion, or do you think it'd be kind of the same thing, really? Same.
You know, I'll ask you this: do we all get the same players or no?
And CFM, like, I'm gonna just say they do, like, it's like a thing where, the rosters are preset, but you're able to do trades and stuff like that, and you're able to like do drafts and stuff, down the road. So I'm gonna say starting off it's a preset with players that are currently signed.
Maybe then. And the reason why I say maybe is because I don't really want to get stuck with a terrible team and try to win it while a guy gets set with a hell of a good team. And that's where basically MUT has become, because everybody has almost the same players, right? And like, if you could have the same players in CFM, then probably I just don't want to get punished with a crappier team. But like, if they said, yeah, we're gonna do 4 seasons, right? 4 seasons. You get draft picks, you get abilities where you can get better with your players. Then I'd be cool having a worse team for year one, because I know that I can build a team. Because bro, I love building teams, Trey. I love drafting and building teams. So yeah, then if it was like a 4 season, I would definitely do it, Trey.
Yeah, no question. And I think it would be cool too over the years if they did do that, because it's going to expand, because like competitive Madden now, I mean, there is some roster management, but it mostly comes down to like what kind of players fit your scheme. But if you're doing CFM, then that kind of requires you to almost think like a general manager would about it, and then you have to go through the whole like recruiting thing. And I guess next year it's going to be more intuitive in that aspect. So I just think if you were to do that, you would channel in like a whole nother skill set that even someone who might not be good at the game per se, but when it comes to that aspect of it, they might actually turn out to be good in that way. So I think that would be pretty cool for sure. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I would enjoy it, bro. Like, I think I was on the minority, bro, of Mutt Draft. Like, I loved Mutt Draft. The only thing that I thought was shady, which, I mean, I think it was shady, and we've talked about ad nauseum lately, overall in general, is the top pro players getting, their playbooks while the other people didn't. But overall, like when we were trying to like make the tournament and stuff, I thought it was fun as hell because, like you said about CFM, and it unlocks a new skill set, right? And that's how I felt in Mutt Draft. All these top pros that were crying, not all of them, but some of the top pros that were crying about how like there's no abilities, it's so hard to pass certain ways. Yeah, that's because they wanted to run the same old plays that would beat the zone coverage and they could dumb themselves down. I literally would, bro. When I was playing Mutt Draft, I would smoke some top pros, bro, because I think that unlocks a new skill set too. Just like you said about CFM, Mutt Draft without abilities, new playbooks, new players, you had to adjust on the fly, right? So you're adjusting on the fly. That's sort of a skill set, right?
Yeah, yeah, no question about it. And it's like, and I'm hoping that EA Sports does it because honestly, I think the most fun in Madden that I've had this year is when they brought back Mud Draft and they updated the pool and everything. And you can grind to get like the top player in Ultimate Team at the time. That was like probably the most fun in Madden I've had since Weekend League. So I'm hoping that EA Sports does something similar to that. It's like, and it's like it doesn't even like it's not like it's hard to do. Like it's not hard to like just update the player pool. So like even if it's not a competitive, if people just want to use it to gain coins or whatever to make their team better, then that should be an option. But as it stands right now, it's completely in the dirt. So I'm hoping to see improvements on that regard. But with all that being said, I think that this would be a good stopping point. Again, we appreciate X Fan Rose. To everyone else that's going to listen to this on the broadcast or later versions, we appreciate you. Hope you had a good 4th of July, and let us know in the comments who of us is less American, is not liking fireworks less American, or is not liking cheesecake less American. That's the question that I want to know. But we appreciate you guys. We will be back, not next Friday, but the Friday after that. Hopefully the same time, but if a situation arises that we have to make an audible, then we will let you guys know in the community tab. And hopefully Shane's thumb will heal more and he can get back to streaming some games for you guys coming up. But overall, we're just looking forward to Madden 25 dropping. So I'll throw it back over to Shane to see if he has anything else to say, and we'll be out of here. We'll be.
I thought it was a great podcast. I appreciate it, like always, Trey. Like yeah, like Trey said, X Fan, Rose, everybody else that was in and out. I know we had about sometimes 4 to 6 people, so I appreciate you guys that are listening. Um, be sure if you want to talk, we will answer it in the podcast and just be, go back and forth with you guys on certain things. But yeah, I am gonna go put that in the comment section. Actually, Trey, I'm gonna have you, if you can, clip this part right here. Trey wants to know which is less American. Somebody not liking cheesecake or somebody not liking fireworks on the 4th of July? That is a big question. I will put it as a short. I will put it in the community section. We will answer it and go over it on July 19th, which is the next podcast. So, Trey, I feel like I'm going to win this, man. I feel like I'm going to win this. But we will see what people think. I know that there were some slight rumors about possibly Mutt Draft being one of the tournaments next year. I'm hoping they keep it that way. I'm not entirely sure if they will, but I would definitely be down for a Mutt Draft, like a month of Mutt Draft. That would be dope. I want them to bring back the leaderboards, actually, but they won't. They'll probably be cut dry, like August 30th or yeah, August 30th it will be the first tournament. It'll be Mutt, and then it'll be like October Mutt, November Mutt, and so on. But anyways, let's wrap this up. I'm blabbing too much. Make sure you go in the community section in a couple hours. Get your votes in. Let us know which is less American. So everybody, I hope you had a great 4th of July. I will talk to you guys soon. Trey will talk to you soon. So for Trey, I'm Shane. This is West Coast Podcast. We will see you next time on July 19th. So thank you and be safe.